Hello, Warriors, back with another episode of Vigor Warriors 2, the 1% Club, and your host, the Wolfman, back again. Woo! We're back with another episode. And welcome, guys. Hope you guys are doing well on your purpose, on your plan. Keep going strong. I'm going to go out in a few minutes here, but I wanted to make a video. One of the great comments, keep making comments and likes and donations. I appreciate all of it. Let's talk about a nice comment that E-Trillionaire sent me. He wanted me to do part 2. And the one part I gave, the first part of the quote, was talking about this great post that our viewer Danny sent us. And it talked about the fact that it was really kind of a great analogy, talking about that hard times really, create hard men. And then as time goes on, hard men create easy times, right? But then easy times end up creating weak men. And weak men create tough times. And that's kind of the idea we're going to talk about here. So please go ahead, subscribe, like, comment. Give me some feedback here. But let's talk about this comment and why this is the case. Let's go through the cycle a little bit here. So, and this is a cycle that's been around throughout history. This is why we talked about another video that usually dynasties, we were talking about the Trojans and Egyptians and the British and the Incas, and all these people we're talking about throughout history, the Greeks, the Romans, about 240, 50 years, you start seeing a rotting of society. And what ends up happening is that no society really has overcome their success. And very few people overcome their success. Because what ends up happening is that people get soft. And let's go through this cycle of this softness where they become weak. And I'll talk about the men. Women are the same way, but a lot of times the men who should be leading, and the men are the ones that should be the ones that are in command and control of situations. And because men are not, women have had to take that mantle up. And a lot of times now it's really confusing in relationships and dating behaviors and those type of things. So let's look at this. So when you have a tough time, and I'll go back to a time I remember my grandparents telling me about, and that was the Great Depression back in the 1920s and 30s and 40s, all through World War II. And so what happened then is people had life rough. And we see some of that now in some parts of the country today where people are having times rough. And when times are rough, then people have to either stand up or they die, right? They are either going to make it or not make it. And so you have to be tough, not only physically, this is why you always keep yourself in shape, but you have to be tough mentally. And if you've gone through that type of situation, you recognize that you always have to be that way. You always have to be prepared. And this is why, in my case, even at 60 years old, I'm working out. Because I've heard stories about that when I was younger, and my grandparents and parents always said, always make sure you're prepared, because times may go tough at some point in your life. And this is something that's really important to focus on and to work on. And the whole idea is that you need to prepare for the fact that things may go rough. But what ends up happening with people continually is that as these tough men and women, but I'm going to just focus on the men, as these tough men go ahead and conquer things, which they will do, because men will overcome as long as they're tough and they keep fighting, right? And they'll keep fighting. And so what ends up happening is that they overcome the tough times and they make times easier. And even in this world right now today, it looks like it's really, really, really tough for a lot of people. It will get better. And in my opinion, I think it's going to completely turn around. Because I think we have a lot of corruptness going on here and lots of forms of life. And all that will be revealed. And all that will be taken care of. And as the world always does. As God did to Babylon. As God did to Sodom and Gomorrah. All these corrupt people, all these evil sinners, they're going to end up paying the price. And eventually we'll get back to easier times. But again, guys, the question, just like that Cheek said with the camel, that eventually you go back to the hard times. And so what ends up happening is that as strong men create easier times, make things easy. They have children. The next generation has children. And as time goes on, what happens is the easier times, they're not training those kids, those men, those boys, to be tough. This is why that the story of the princess back in the old time, before a boy became a prince or a ruler, they would put the boy out in a lake or river, at a young age by themselves and made them come back. Because they had to toughen the boy up. This is why when you look at the Spartas and all the different types of armies, Roman armies back in the days when they were in the heydays, they battled tough. Sometimes the practices were tougher than the actual battles because they had to make them battle tough. And you need to be battle tough every day. You can't be just kind of rest on your laurels saying, okay, well, I've done this, and now I can relax. That's when times go bad. Just like in a war in an army, things go bad right after the time that you made a conquer. When you conquer somebody, that's the time you have to be most prepared. Because they may come back on you, people may be hiding in the bushes, and all of a sudden now you got more problems again. And these are the types of things that happen when all of a sudden you're not really ready for it. So when we talk about different types of things like that, it's always important to recognize that when times get easy, this is the time to be prepared and get yourself to the point where you can also continue to be battle tested. You got to be battle tested. And so what ends up happening in our societies and history, which is why a lot of dynasties have fallen, is basically that once you get to the point where easy times are here, the easy times in the next generation create the weak men. And then the weak men then once again create the hard times. And now you get a cycle. And this cycle is played out over and over again in history, but no one really pays too much attention to it. And they really don't teach their young to have that battle intensity. And I don't know, I'm not sure in some reason, some way you can't teach it completely. You have to get to the point where you're teaching it to some degree. And so you get to the point where you have to really kind of look and see, what is being tough, what is really being that type of thing, okay? So when you focus on things, you have to kind of look and see, okay, what is the way to do that? Well, when you're younger and you're focusing on this type of thing, you have to kind of say to yourself, all right, how do I become battle tested? Well, you put yourself in tough situations. You put yourself in situations where you have to kind of stand up and you have to go ahead and make the call. And you have to take responsibility. You have to go and put yourself and take risks and chances. You have to go to the point where you're saying, okay, no matter what, I'm going to go ahead and do this. And I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, this is the best thing to do, and focus on the next possibility. Okay? All right, so once again, this whole idea of weak men creating hard times is very real. And the society that we're in right now, I have a feeling, because the United States is over 240, 250 years old, is going to that period of time. Now, it can be stopped if we've learned from history. And one of the reasons why I'm part of this 1% club, and I have fought to continue to be battle tested, because even after 58 years, I was not going to give up. And I will never give up. They're going to have to drag me out. And I'm saying this in many forms. But the idea, guys, is that you have to be battle tested, or else you're going to create those weak, wussy men, beta males. We're going to get run over when time is needed to fight up and stand up and fight. They're not going to want to fight. And you can't protect yourself, your family, your country with that. And that's when societies fall. That's when the Romans fell. All the barbarian groups came in, but they couldn't come in if the Roman army was at its peak. No way. They'd get slaughtered. They knew that. It's only when the Roman Empire fell from within with all the corrupt behaviors, the sinful behaviors, that they fell apart. British the same way. The revolution occurred because of it. All right, guys, until next time then. Battle on.